Howdy everybody, I pray you had a blessed week. So I have this chunk of oak. I was blessed with a really long plank of this oak. I don't know what kind it is, some of you may know. So I decided that platters is what I wanted to make out of most of it. I'll save some of it for when I get my bandsaw set up for segmenting, but for the most part I'll probably make a few more platters, so keep an eye out for those. I decided on this shape for the platter slash bowl because I felt that it would help serve for the fact that I was going to fill the rim a lot better. It would give it some more meat for me filling the resin. I drew out a spot for where I wanted to kind of have the foot, and as you can see, that as I was turning, I just didn't feel like the proportions were right, so I just would take a little bit more away and then step back and look at it and take a little bit more away. You can't put it back, so it's better to go gradually and just kind of, I guess feel your way through the shape. I sanded the back of this platter all the way up to 400 grit and then cleaned it off with denatured alcohol. Applied my sanding sealer, which is 50-50 shellac and denatured alcohol. Also used abrasive paste that a friend of mine sent me. His name is Todd, and I'll leave his information in the description below so you can contact him if you'd like to try his abrasive paste and his paste wax. I also changed my recipe a little bit of my OB Shine Juice. OB Shine Juice is great and it's fantastic, but I was reading through some comments on Facebook about a polish called a Frenchies polish. Some of you may have heard of it and may have already used it, and I've been using it for a while now, giving it a test run to see how I like it, and I do love it. The shine builds a lot quicker, and so I don't have to put as many coats, and also the shine stays. So it stays shiny. Sometimes with the OB Shine Juice, depending on the piece, it would just look dull after the oil soaked in or evaporated, and it just didn't seem as shiny as after I took it off the lathe. And it could be, operation error. I'm not saying that it's the juice. It could be me and how I'm using it or applying it. I'm definitely not perfect. But the Frenchies polish is actually 60% shellac, 30% denatured alcohol, and 10% boiled linseed oil. It builds faster, holds a shine, and I absolutely love it. It's I've been using it for quite some time now. I just never updated my card. And also I wanted to kind of give it a good run on multiple pieces of wood before, I told everybody, hey, this is good stuff, try it, because, but just mix a little bit of it and, maybe mix some OB, the traditional OB mix, which is, equal parts of those three, and then mix some Frenchies and just try it, test it out for yourself and see how you like it. Also, I've learned that if you store shellac in the refrigerator, it lasts a lot longer. So you can mix and make OB shine juice ahead of time in bigger quantities if you'd like. Just put it in the refrigerator so the shellac doesn't go bad, because it does. It has an expiration date, and I'm not quite sure when that is, and I don't even know if you could tell how old your shellac is when you purchase it. So that's a good tip and good to know. And I will put the updated recipe in my description below also for the Frenchies shine juice. So right now I'm making the well for putting the feathers in, and I'm not quite exactly sure, how that's going to turn out. Never done this before, so I'm just going along and kind of feeling and seeing, okay, well, how the feather's going to sit. I don't want them being right at the surface. I want them to look further down, so I wanted enough space to where I had resin that would float on top. Plus I was using the 3-to-1 resin, which is a slower set, so you don't have to use a pressure pot, but underneath these feathers can develop quite a bit of air, as you will see a little later in the video, how I deal with that. I just used Star Bond thin. I cut all the really rough stems off the pieces so it wouldn't cause it to bulk up or anything, and they were a lot easier to manage and put them on the platter. And I used Star Bond to just tack them down, just to keep them, one, from floating when I put resin, and another to keep them in the spot that I put them. These feathers I got at Hobby Lobby. They were on sale for like $1 or something, and I got a big old bag of them. And they have just multicolors, and I have several different kinds. Some are blue, some are brown. I have a friend of mine that is also a turner, and he has been doing it a lot longer than I have. He's fantastic. I've mentioned him before in a couple of my videos, and his name is James Lee. He puts feathers in his, but he uses duck feathers. Somebody asked me what feathers would probably be best, and I think the duck feathers, because they are designed to where they can get wet, and they kind of just stay looking color and vibrant when you pour the resin on top. These did keep the color and stay vibrant when I put resin on them, but I think the duck feathers would have worked much nicer. But I didn't know this, but it is illegal to have some duck pelts. I don't know what they are, so just make sure if you happen to get duck feathers from someone that it's not illegal to have them. I don't know the rules and laws as far as each state, and what's legal and what isn't legal as far as having bird feathers, but I know that it is illegal to be in possession of certain kinds of feathers. So that's why I played it safe and just purchased some from Hobby Lobby. And so yeah, that's what I'm using now, and just gluing them down and spraying the activator to kind of like speed up the process. If I didn't overlap these, I'm not sure if I would use maybe I'd use like a medium CA glue instead of the thin, because wherever the glue was at, it did kind of make the feathers look different. It took them and made them look kind of weird. So I had to overlap them to keep the glue from showing how it kind of distorted the feathers a little bit. And don't get this stuff on your fingers and touch feathers. I had so many feathers stuck to my hands, it wasn't even funny. I used the 3-to-1 because this obviously wouldn't fit in my pressure pot. And so right now I poured some in, and I'm just mashing down the feathers, because where they're layered, there's air pockets just stuck underneath of them. And even after doing what I can to get the air bubbles out, there were still just a few of them after it was all said and done. And when I turned it, and I could feel on the surface after I sanded and finished it and everything, there was just some bubbles that you can't really see, but you can feel them on the surface. So you'll know, because no matter how you try to finish it, it'll kind of look like there's pits. It's the best way I can describe it. It look like little pits. I only waited 4 days to let this resin sit, and I probably should have waited 5 or 6. And I say that because I had to get this done and give me time to edit the video and everything. But the resin was slightly gummy. I mean, it wasn't tacky or sticky. It just was a lot softer than when I wait for things to properly cure. It didn't really pose much of a challenge with cutting it. The gouge actually did better than the scraper. The scraper would just kind of roll everything up. It just kind of like rolled the surface versus cutting the surface. My gouge would cut the surface. The scraper would roll it. So I just kept going over it with my gouge to help give it a smoother cut. Otherwise, it would be like trying to sand shaggy hair. It's like the best way I could think to describe it. So yeah, after I should have waited a little longer, and I didn't have my piece quite level when I allowed it to set, because it was sitting in my floor in my house, and I didn't check to make sure it was level before I walked away from it. So one side is a little lower, so I'm just trying to get that even. So if you do decide to do this, be smarter than me and make sure that your piece is level when pouring resin in it. I sanded the bowl portion in the resin, and mostly the inside bowl portion, up to 400 grit. I applied the abrasive paste to the inside bowl portion because I knew I wasn't going to wet sand the wood. Now I was just going to focus on the rim and sand it. And as you can see, the abrasive paste does help give it some clarity. I've had a lot of questions that abrasive paste clears it up. If you put another finish over top of it, that's fine, but I wanted, and I guess it all depends on your level of acceptance. Now that's what the rim would look like if I were to stop at 400 grit and use a fine abrasive paste. Abrasive pastes do a great job, but if you're wanting to have a more glass-like finish, there is no avoiding it. You're gonna have to sand through all the grits. I would even recommend going past 5,000 if you can get your hands on micro mesh or order some micro mesh. I have 2-inch round discs that I ordered, and I only ordered up to 3,000. I'm sanding with mineral oil because I don't want to sand with water and cause my the wood to swell. I've had that happen. So I just use mineral oil and it keeps it from swelling. And then after I go all the way up to 3,000 on the rim, I use the NOVUS plastic polish. I had a few deep scratches that I didn't get out when I was going through my grits, and I didn't catch it until obviously you get to that real fine point. So I used the deep scratch and then the fine scratch. And there are some, it's not perfect. It's not like literally flawless. I did find some scratches here and there, like I said, where they were a little deeper in areas. And if you don't get those scratches out during that grit sanding, it doesn't matter how many grits you go through, you're still going to have those scratches. So it's best to go back if you can catch them and see them, sand, and then move on. Resin is if you want a clear finish, you have to put the work in. I timed how long it took me from the time I started sanding this bowl till I put the last coat of shellac on, and it was about 2 hours. 2 hours of sanding and applying finish, and that wasn't cutting, that was just sanding. So, you know, the work will show in the end, and the shellac does help cover up, or the Frenchies polish that I used on the inside did help to fill in some of those scratches, so it gave it a better, you know, clarity and shine, which thank goodness for that. But anyways, that is my project for this week, and I pray you all have a blessed week, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. God bless.